Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Before I Go podcast. I want to talk to you today about love languages. If you are not familiar, the topic of love languages became popular with the publication of the book, The 5 Love Languages by Gary Chapman. According to Chapman, each person has one primary and one secondary love language. A love language is not only how a person expresses love, but in my opinion, more importantly, how they receive love. An example would be if a husband's love language is acts of service. He may be confused when he does the laundry for his wife and she doesn't perceive that as an act of love, viewing it as simply performing household duties because the love language she comprehends is words of affirmation. She may try to use what she values, words of affirmation, to express her love for him, which he would not value as much as she does. If she understands his love language and mows the lawn for him, he perceives it in his love language as an act of expressing her love for him. Likewise, if he tells her he loves her, she values that as an act of love. The 5 love languages are acts of service, physical touch, quality time, words of affirmation, and receiving gifts. Do you know what your love language is? Do you know what your partner's love language is? I'm no relationship expert, far from it. However, in my experience, I believe it is helpful to know your own, to know theirs, and to share that information. If your love language is receiving gifts and your partner does not know that and therefore never gives you gifts, that could be a problem. And by the way, if your primary love language is receiving gifts, that does not mean you are a materialistic person. It simply means that that is the way that you perceive that you are loved, and probably the way that you express love. My primary love language is quality time, and my secondary love language is acts of service. It's funny, I used to describe myself as low maintenance, but after many years and many relationships, I can see now that I'm a handful. I am a lot. There's a line from the movie When Harry Met Sally, when Harry tells Sally that she's the worst type of woman because she's high maintenance, but believes that she's low maintenance. I'm beginning to think that's me. Quality time is a tricky love language for a person who is an introvert by nature. Here's the thing. I love my alone time. However, in order for me to feel loved by someone, they have to be willing to give me one thing, their time. Not a lot of time, but the time has to be of good quality. True story. I dated someone once who was a huge sports fan, and he would come to my house, sit on my couch, and watch sports on his phone for hours until it was time to go to bed, while I sat there and read or watched something else on television or crocheted. I would take a break to make him a meal, but during that time, there was no conversation at all. I finally had to tell him to stop coming over on Sunday because I need quality time, and that was not it. His response, at least I'm there. My response, so's the garbage. We didn't make it. Quality time for me is an indication that a person is making an effort. We all have busy lives, but if someone makes an effort to make me a priority, then I feel loved. And if I feel loved, there is nothing I would not do for you. My secondary love language is acts of service. Again, this is tricky for someone who's viewed as an independent woman. The thought is that since I'm so independent, that I don't need, want, or would be willing to accept help. Oh, contraire, mon frère. Just because I'm independent doesn't mean that I would not appreciate someone easing my load once in a while. I've been independent my whole life and I am tired. Here's the rub. Don't say you're going to do something for me and then make me wait for you to do it. I'd prefer it if you don't say anything at all. True story. I used to have a group of young gentlemen living next door to me. One day, one of the gentlemen told me that they did not own a lawnmower, and since I did, he wanted to borrow my mower and then he would gladly cut both our yards. Initially, I thought that was so thoughtful and I really appreciated the offer. The only thing is, when I want my grass cut, I want it cut. And I can't be waiting for this guy to do it for me, especially when I'm physically able to do it myself. There is nothing worse than pulling up to my house and seeing a lawn that needs to be mowed. For me, acts of service are when someone does something for me that simply makes my life easier. When someone jumps in and takes over without me having to ask more than once or at all. Take my car in for maintenance, cook a meal, wash a dish, something. Because I am who I am, when I see that something needs to be done, I'm going to do it. And my feeling is this: if I see it, I know you see it too. So maybe I'm not low maintenance, and that's okay. I know who I am, I know what I want, and I know what makes me feel loved. What about you? What's your love language? If you don't know or aren't sure, there are several quizzes online you can take to find out. Once you do, share it with your partner. You'll be happy that you did. That's all I have for today. Thank you so much for listening. Before I go, let me share this with you from Jane Austen. It isn't what we say or think that defines us, but what we do. I'll see you next time.